All right, I'll get us started with some of the introductions, and then we'll have our guest speaker take over. So this is the Digital Scholar webinar that's hosted by the Southern California Clinical and Translational Science Institute, or the CTSI, here at the University of Southern California and Children's Hospital, LA. My name is Eric Peterson. I'm the co-director of digital recruitment and scholarship within the CTSI. I'm also an associate professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences here at USC. So today our speaker is open to having questions throughout. So if you have any burning questions coming up as she's speaking, you can throw them into the Q&A feature or even into the chat feature of Zoom. Most people know how to use that now, but you should be able to find it on your screen, either click chat or Q&A. We can also facilitate a Q&A and a discussion at the end as well. So anything that comes up, please type in there and we'll have a discussion at the end. So really excited today. Our guest speaker is Dr. Conny Guell. She's going to be talking about digital tools for scaling up qualitative research. And as part of this talk, she's going to describe some tools to help with analyses of large qualitative data sets. And so we've been hoping to get somebody like Dr. Guell for a long time, and really excited that she agreed to do this. So Dr. Guell is the co-director of the European Center for Environment and Human Health, along with Dr. Ben Wheeler. She's a medical anthropologist and has many research interests. A few of them would be socio-cultural environments of health and social theoretical approaches to health behavior and behavior change. She focuses on food systems and mobility practices. Also methods development of citizen science approaches and knowledge exchange, and then also policy and historical analysis of structural approaches to non-communicable chronic diseases. Dr. Guell is also the co-director of the Exeter Medical School's Master of Science program in Environment and Human Health. She completed a degree in sociology and social anthropology at the University of Heidelberg and her graduate training in medical anthropology at Brunel University. So we're really excited to have Dr. Guell, and I'm going to pass it over to her now.
Thanks very much, Eric. So really excited to be here. Thanks for the very kind introduction. I just wanted to start, and that's checking in with everyone while you're possibly having your lunch. You could try out the Q&A function. I would quite like to know in the room how many people are relatively newbies to qualitative research and how many are sort of advanced qualitative researchers. That would just be quite interesting to know. I think what you pop in the Q&A, the others can't see, so just we as the panelists can see. So it's pretty anonymous. If you put in newbie or advanced, that would be really great to see. I might just pause for a second there. Well, people are typing. That's great to know. So we have quite a few experienced quality people there. Between newbie and advanced, that's great. Fantastic. Okay, because I won't really go into in general kind of data analysis with the qualitative research. So it's really great to have a group of advanced people here, but do feel free if you're relatively new or new-ish to qualitative research. As I said, I'm really happy to answer any questions you might have. Okay, I'll start sharing my screen. But yeah, as Eric said, I'm really happy to be interrupted if you have any particular questions you want to ask. Okay, so I think the first disclaimer here is that I'm not an expert in digital tools, and I will particularly look at a text analytics software here for you today. I completely got to this as a qualitative researcher. I've been doing qualitative research for the past 20 years now, have through that time used various digital tools that kind of from the more basic to the more advanced. And through a particular project got to text analytics and sort of AI software. So that's why I'm invited. I'm, as I said, absolutely no expert in this, but I think it's a really interesting field within qualitative research and qualitative data analysis. And I think gotten even more interesting in recent time, thinking more about AI. So I'm hoping we have a really good discussion today. So just as a quick overview, so I'll talk just very briefly about regular qualitative data analysis software. And then I'll talk about upscaling qualitative data sets, because this is what led me to this more AI semi-automatic text analytics software. I'll share a worked example with you, and then I hope we have some time to discuss opportunities, but also limitations of AI in qualitative research. So I'm guessing quite a lot of people in the room will be really familiar with computer-assisted qualitative data analysis software. There are lots of different commercial programs. I put in bold here the ones I mainly used. Usually it's when you're based in an institution, there is a kind of favorite software or a site license. I used currently mainly using NVivo. I've used Atlas TI before. And in my global health research, I particularly like using Deduce because it's relatively affordable and it's web-based and it's really easy to use across lots of different timescales. I realized many of the other programs also have the sort of web function, but I do like Deduce, and Deduce, I think, has its home in California. To my knowledge, there's currently no substantive open access program available, which is a real shame. And I think we are losing out here compared to stats programs. There's WEF-QDA. I think it's no longer properly supported. I think they're warning that you shouldn't use it for anything substantive like a PhD thesis to do your analysis with. It's also quite basic, I kind of feel, for students. If people want to dip their toes into different software, they're probably better off with these sort of free first month or so with the other programs. And I think most people in the room know that in essence, these don't perform real analysis. They assist with text management. The main function they perform is to help you code your qualitative textual data. They now can help with transcription as well, mapping, annotating text queries. And the latter, these text queries have been increasingly gotten more sophisticated, more towards automated text analytics and AI functionality. And I'm kind of struggling a bit to keep up with the sort of different versions of different software packages and what they can do. There are some great textbooks, obviously, for each of these software programs. If you're interested in those and you dialed in because you wanted to hear about them, there are also some great books that help you to think through which software might be particularly useful for a particular project. So they all have slightly different functionality. They obviously perform pretty much the same general function, but some programs are really good for, say, mixed method analysis. Actually, Deduce is really great for mixed method analysis as well. Some programs are really good for things like visual data. I work a lot with visual data. I really like NVivo actually for that. So there is quite a bit out there that helps you to find help with picking the right software. Okay, but why use it for large qualitative data sets? Well, there is increasingly automated functionality in these programs. But before I go to this, I just wanted to talk a bit about why we might want to upscale qualitative research. So by that, I'm just talking about or use it as a shorthand for developing or analyzing unusually large qualitative data sets. This might be multi-site, multi-method qualitative research projects. So a lot of my global health work is, for example, a bunch of smaller qualitative studies, but across lots of different settings, and you end up with quite a large data set as you pull these together. But you also might want to pull several small qualitative data sets together that were not designed as a group of studies that are meant to speak to each other. And that's not to, in any way, to suggest that maybe these small studies are insufficient in sample size or lacking saturation in a way. Indeed, the strength of qualitative research is really in its more scale, context-specific and context-sensitive approach. So I'm not trying to make a big pitch that we all should really upscale qualitative research. So with the right kind of research questions, that might be the right approach. So instead, I would say that maybe sometimes we want to develop new approaches to respond to particular research questions. Or we might also develop new approaches to changes in expectations and opportunities in our various fields. And definitely in my field around sort of social medicine in the UK, there's has been recently quite a call for less research and more thinking. Perhaps for those of you who are familiar with Trish Greenhalgh, she's a prolific tweeter if you're interested in her work, UK-based kind of family health research, a lot of call research. So she has this really great quote from one of her blogs, where she says, with due respect to all those who have used more research as needed to sum up months and years of their own work on a topic, this ultimate academic cliche is usually an indicator that serious scholarly thinking on the topic has ceased. It is almost never the only logical conclusion that can be drawn from a set of negative, ambiguous, incomplete or contradictory data. And I quite like her idea to say maybe sometimes we need to go back to our data and try to figure out these difficult questions. So we have these calls for more innovative research designs, and I include different ways of data analysis in this to understand certain things like addressing complexity, underlying mechanisms, sort of systems thinking projects. We also, particularly in the UK, we have a real drive towards open access data and data sharing, and that includes qualitative data, which I think makes many of us qualitative researchers a bit nervous. So the National Institute of Health Research and our UK research councils or push for open access of your data, and you really have to make a strong case why you don't want to have your data out there. But that obviously comes with some opportunities. However, obviously, there is limited feasibility of analyzing and interpreting large volumes of textual data with our traditional approaches. But maybe in a way we want to be pushed a little bit towards new ways and types of thinking. So the kind of worked example I wanted to introduce is our active travel synthesis study. So this is the study that brought me to thinking about different ways of using the digital tools in qualitative research. So this was a Springboard Award they're called with the UK Academy of Medical Sciences. In this project, we pitched for both upscaling research to come towards new insights for studies, but also we made sort of a proof of concept pitch towards new tools and approaches to analysis. And a big shout out to Emily Haynes, my research fellow, who's been working on this project and ever since in my team, and she's done a lot of the groundwork of understanding the software, and also a lot of the slides were initially put together by her. Okay, so we pulled together a whole bunch of studies that all looked at active travel across the UK. Some of them you can say I led when I was a postdoc, and now over 10 years ago. Other studies led by colleagues, but they all had very similar ideas around trying to understand travel and travel decisions in the UK. So we had this idea of this grant and to pool 5 qualitative projects that aimed to all understand travel or mobility experiences and decisions. They were all public health projects. They were all obviously related to understanding why people walk or cycle, or why they don't, why they do it in their everyday life, how this might link to physical activity levels, and where there might be an opportunity for public health interventions towards more active lifestyle. But in these qualitative studies, we try to really look at active travel, understand active travel in context. And by pulling them together, we made a pitch to say, can we compare practices of active travel in different contexts? So across locations, so some of these studies happen in big cities like London and Glasgow. They're quite different cities. Some in smaller and rural areas, places like Cambridge that are very known for a cycling culture across all ages and social classes, but obviously different gender, different age groups, and also different modes of travel in these studies. So some of these studies were like one was a bus study, one was a study to understand ambitions of young drivers. 2 studies were particularly around cycling. So different modes of transport. So we thought if we pull these studies, we might generate a more diverse and perhaps a more transferable data set of 280 transcripts. And maybe that would help us to develop a transferable theory of practice change across these different projects. As I said, it was mainly meant to be a proof of concept study. Now back to the kind of quite traditional software programs that you could use. And that was our first step to think, well, let's look at, we kind of had budgeted for the kind of pro version of NVivo that had offered particular auto-coding functionalities. So we thought, because it's perhaps quite unfeasible to analyze this data set of 280 transcripts, maybe this sort of auto-coding functionality might help us. We abandoned this idea relatively quickly, but I just wanted to share that these programs can do some of these functions. I pulled this directly from the website for NVivo particular, but again, across the different programs, there is this functionality. So one functionality they have is that of pattern-based autocoding. They very much alert you to the fact that it's an experimental feature. It's designed to speed up the coding process. You know, it might work for some projects better than for others. So in this function, NVivo compares each text passage, so for example, sends us paragraphs, to the content already coded to existing nodes. So you have to have started with your coding, and then you can kind of auto-code sort of the rest of your set of data. They also have the autocode wizard. Again, they say if you're working with a large volume of data or have limited time, this might be useful. This process is a bit different to pattern-based coding, so it uses more linguistic processes and a specialized sentiment dictionary. When I looked this up for this talk, I realized, I think when we explored this for our active travel study, synthesis study, which is now about 5 years ago, I don't think that particular functionality worked at that moment. So we had looked into it and considered different kind of software, and we abandoned that for a different program, which is called Lexington, and that's sort of the main digital tool I would like to introduce. Lexington is also a commercial program. You have to pay for license. I don't get any commission to talk about them. I haven't used any others, so I can't say that this is a particularly good one compared to other text mining or text analytics software programs. So just happen to use this and look at its functionality and like to share with you how useful we found it and where we thought were the limitations. So this is software. It's not a general qualitative analysis software. This is very specifically a text mining software application that automatically codes large sets of textual data. When we picked this up to see if this would be useful for us, we've seen it used in kind of primary research to define terms. Particularly, I saw it used in systematic reviewing, so around kind of abstract content within journals, sort of trends analyses, and then to select search terms for systematic reviews. And it was the person on the team who's a systematic review expert who got us onto this software and said they found it really useful in systematic review synthesis. So that's why we landed on this software. And when we picked this up, we felt that the utility of the software for qualitative data analysis wasn't really explored yet. So we found some qualitative data, but it was kind of a quite quantitative way of using it. So it gave you kind of quite quantitative sort of content analysis, sort of number of hits type analysis outputs for these sort of studies. So first, though, a bit about these terminologies. So what is semi-automatic text analytics? So it lies beneath an umbrella term, which is machine learning approaches, text mining, which is a type of machine learning approaches. And in machine learning, text is transformed into numeric form, and a statistical interrelation, and the statistical interrelationships are analyzed. So there are algorithms behind this. And the other thing I have to say that I'm not a math person, and I don't understand the algorithms behind this kind of text analytics. So there are kind of two common divisions in machine learning. So one is supervised machine learning. So in supervised machine learning, that asks the researcher for rules to inform the automated analysis. So as a researcher, you're training the system, and you provide it with codes, and then it can code the rest of the data set. It's most accurate, apparently, when you use it on a really large data set. And we have been advised that supervised machine learning is what you might use in social media analysis. So, for example, if you have a study that might pull 600,000 tweets or so that's the kind of volume of text that you might want to look at. Obviously, we had 280 transcripts, so it didn't seem quite the right type of machine learning for us. And it couldn't be used to identify latent concepts or themes. And by that, I will get to it in a little bit, but in a way, what we wanted to use it was to give us a fresh lens. So the other challenge we had, other than that we pulled data and felt we now have a pretty large data set, is that all of us were in some form original researchers, analyzers of this data, and we were at least in part very familiar with some of this data and have led the analysis of some of these studies. So we felt maybe a program like this could help us to take a step back and sort of start with a bit more of a blank slate rather than being too guided by our previous analyses. And then we're more kind of in the synthesis territory than doing new analysis. So the other set is unsupervised machine learning that doesn't require any researcher input, and the patterns are entirely driven from the data. And that kind of more simple and more, so in the past analysis were based on quite simple algorithms, and I believe sort of the earlier version of NVivo, for example, used relatively simple algorithms that use a list of terms to code the rest of the data. But more recently, the software has really developed to apply more complex algorithms that can identify not only the keywords, but interconnections with other terms to identify what they call concepts in context. And I get a bit more into what they mean by that in a moment. So yeah, so Lexington performs an automatic unsupervised analysis of text. Text of imported individual files or folders, and it simultaneously conducts two forms of analysis. So one is semantic analysis and one is relational analysis. So semantic analysis draws on the attributes or entities, words or collections of words extracted by its own dictionary of terms. And then a relational analysis draws on the frequency of occurrence and the co-occurrence of words with each other. So this is one of the outputs. Kind of the disclaimer I want to say, we kind of picked this as this, it doesn't require researcher input way of using text analytics. And in fact, it does require you to put some, to understand the software and create a model for your analysis. The first thing we realized is that you have to prepare, if you're pulling data from lots of different existing data sets, you have to prepare your transcripts in a very specific way and harmonize your transcripts before you can upload them. The other thing that you, I guess, have to be prepared with in kind of pulling qualitative data is that you have to be very clear about the ethical approvals you have for reusing data. So we probably spent a good first half of the first year of the project getting permissions for the data and also preparing the data. So in terms of really speeding up your process, there are definitely parts to this kind of research that isn't accelerated in any kind of way. Just a little bit to show how you would build the model. It is relatively simple. None of us know much about algorithms or anything more complex. So it was relatively simple to use. So you select your documents and upload them. You generate what's called concept seeds. And then you can merge them. So that's very much if you use word cloud software, for example, that you might use kind of merge different words that you feel belong to the same stem. And then the program generates a thesaurus at first of terms associated with these concept seeds. And that's then the kind of thesaurus it uses for the text analytics. You can include other things here. So for example, you can include kill concepts And the main kill concept we had to use is that of interviewer. So we had to prepare our transcripts in a particular way, but you have to tell Leximancer which are the bits they shouldn't include in the analysis. And we try to exclude any interviewer questions in the analysis. And then you get to concept maps. So this is what you get as an output from Leximancer. So the outputs are presented in two ways. So the first is a concept map, also sometimes called an intertopic distance map. So these are the colorful bubbles here. And that provides a bird's eye view over your data. So the colored bubbles illustrate key themes. I mean, that's what they call themes. In our paper, we're very conscious that what Leximancer might call themes is not what we might call theme. In thematic analysis, they also use different categories and different terms that might not fully translate into usual qualitative research. And Leximancer hasn't been developed for qualitative research specifically. Okay, so we have the bubbles that illustrate key themes. The colors are heat mapped, so anything in red is more important and more often occurring. And then within the bubbles are collections of interlinked dots, which represent the concepts that make up each theme. So most importantly is that the proximity of the bubbles and concept dots to one another indicate conceptual similarity. So those that are clustered together are most closely related. There's also kind of a second output, and that is for any of these themes, you get also automatically a link to a particular transcript. So not to all of them. I think you get 5 text extracts, but you can definitely dive into lots of other text extracts and come back to your original transcripts in this way. Okay, so we took a lot of time off the project to just understand Leximancer and what you would do with the software. So we created, we've written first a paper that just aimed to provide a step-by-step guide to use Leximancer. And then we also used it to interrogate opportunities and limitations of the software. And I can put the link to the paper in the chat as well. So that was the first thing we tried to do. And just to show how we pulled this together. So these are our 5 data sets that we pulled together in our kind of one pooled data set of 280 transcripts that we had to prepare in a certain way so Leximancer can read them the right way. Then we fed them into Leximancer, our unsupervised machine learning program, and had as a result a range of these intertopic distance maps. Now, as you can imagine, looking at them, even if you don't know much about our studies, is that there is not one straightforward way of arriving at findings from these studies. And you can possibly imagine, you saw also these frequency counts, how you might have had some of these early qualitative studies that sort of left it at these kind of frequency counts. Now, we didn't think a frequency count of, say, cycle here in red heat map is the most important concept theory in one of these heat maps, that's particularly interesting for 5 travel studies. So we went back to our text excerpts to really understand what are patterns that Leximancer might direct us towards, that we can then infer meaning, frame in a certain theoretical way, and kind of come back to our original context to really understand what's going on. So that's sort of the kind of cycle of how we applied or how we developed a research design for our study. And first of all, just for that first paper, all we tried to see is, as a finding, what might be useful about using this text analytics software. And the opportunities we found is that one is it did really help us to zoom out. As I said, I was involved with 3 of these studies that I knew very intimately. 2 I didn't know much about. And I didn't want this to cloud kind of my understanding of the whole data set. So it really helped you to really zoom out of the data and really get a fresh lens to uncover previously unidentified patterns. Also, there's a lot of textual data, so actually it also helped us to zoom in, and that's mainly through this function that you might be alerted to certain interesting ideas, I guess we'd rather call them, than sort of themes and categories as they would use them in Leximancer, and really help us to zoom into particular points of interest we might want to find out more about. And particularly, it led us into exploring gendered accounts and gendered practices around travel, which was really interesting because there was actually only one study that was a very particular, a study that particularly looked at gender. Well, it was a study that looked particularly at women of different ethnic backgrounds in London, but it had a particular interest in understanding if these women's experience was particular for this context. So that's the second paper. Again, I can put it in the chat, where we aim to, again, the aim was to upscale insights from individual contexts by synthesizing data from primary qualitative research studies, and then to explore gender patterns of active travel in this data set, in this pooled data set. So here is sort of the output, the intertopic distance maps that led us looking at gender and comparing women's and men's data sets, if you will, across our 5 different data sets. And actually, the first thing we found interesting was that there seemed at the surface very little difference between them. And sort of Leximancer does give you a lot of sort of quantitative stats around this. And in fact, 91% of the automatically identified concepts occurred in both gender subgroups. I guess the other kind of disclaimer I want to say, and it is a study that's 5 years old, it seems like a very binary study now. And I guess any studies that use modeling in some ways, I guess it is the data that you can feed in, that you can work with, and all we had were kind of binary ideas around gender attached to these 5 studies that we pooled. So just to talk you a bit through how we then did our analysis and just sort of a taste of the findings. So at the surface, these seem similar, but we wanted to drill back into the transcripts and to say, how might these have been differently experienced, what seem to be similar concepts, perhaps differently experienced, or how might they have been differently spoken about in these interviews. And we had to zoom into particular parts of these larger bubbles. And we were interested in kind of travel as a social practice, as a particular behavior. And we saw that across the men's and the women's data sets, a particularly frequently co-occurring concept was home and work. And we took that as sort of the social practice of commuting. So the travel practice of commuting from home to work and back. And we tried to look at how might this be differently experienced across the different data sets, or similarly experienced. So for the women, we found that they very much talked about multifunctional journeys. And in fact, what's in the kind of world of social practice, that was our theoretical grounding, bundled practices. Here's a nice example. This woman talks about, well, at the end of the workday, there's very often something to do that means either going into town or getting to another location, which you just simply can't do on a bike, or picking something up, or I don't know, going to babysit my grandson or something like that. And I just have to bring the car then. So here's a nice example, and we have lots of examples of women who say do lots of chores on the way to work, on the way back to work, get their kids to school, things like that, get shopping done on the way back. Now, in comparison to that, we found very linear journeys in the men's data set when they talked about it, when we looked at this co-occurring concept of work and home. So here's a classic example. I generally make sure that if I got anything happening after work, or I'll allow myself time to get home, get changed, freshen up a bit, and then I go rather than go maybe straight from work. We also had sort of connected practices that we called resultant practices, but there were more this idea, or I actually enjoy using my cycle to work as a bit of exercise, but it's really important that I have a shower at work so I can get showered and then get to work. So it's sort of, they often obviously linked sort of the importance of, or the practice of showering is really important to the cycle commute, but it's in a more linear fashion. We also, I think, grappled with this idea, if all this is really linguistic, is it perhaps a different way women and men talk? Is it different experience, or is it different in the way they're talking about their experiences? That particularly made us think, because sort of another really interesting part of sort of the bubbles that made us think we want to explore more what's behind them is that a very important co-occurring concept for women with cycle was feel. And we weren't quite sure what that means, and why women feel strongly about cycling. And we looked in the transcripts, we found that actually it wasn't about kind of feelings about cycling, it was very much about safety. And there were lots and lots of discussions across the different data sets about feeling safe for women. So we kind of try to see how we can look at the men's experience, linguistic way, discourses of talking about issues like that. We started with cycle and realized, well, cycle wasn't connected to feel in any way. Actually, feel wasn't a concept of one of the 9% of differences. Cycle was connected to road, and when we looked at these transcripts, we found that actually there were depictions of sort of safety or danger in these interviews, transcripts, but in quite a different way. So here's a typical example. So both are from the same data set, the commuting Cambridge data set. But here a man says, but the road is pretty dangerous, so that's the reason I don't cycle as much as I would like. In fact, I don't cycle at all. So clearly there's the same sentiment in a way, that both of these commuters in Cambridge feel that it's too dangerous to cycle, that it's very dangerous to cycle in Cambridge, but they talk about it in quite a different way. And to explore this further, you can do sensitivity analyses in Lexington. Again, I'm probably not the right person to talk you through them, but there's lots of guidance around there. But what we managed to do is to just explore more concepts around safety and danger across the different data sets. And we could see them across the different data sets and across different travel modes as well. So again, here, and a depiction, a young driver here, that's in Northern Ireland, female teenager. It's awful, I actually feel safe in the car with lots of friends than I do my mum, with lots of friends than with my mum, I guess she says here. No, I would like to walk out here, but I just don't feel safe. So that's a woman living in quite a deprived neighborhood in Glasgow, in Scotland. And then again, depictions around danger for men about different things. But I guess what's very stark here is that in general, like women's accounts, men refer to safety or danger. It was externally framed. So it was the conditions of the road that were dangerous, or it was people that were dangerous, or a particular place that didn't feel was safe. So those are just kind of a flavor of the kind of analysis we did at the back of the text analytics that Lexington performed for us. So I guess the first part, that kind of directing us to work towards certain ideas, was Lexington, but I guess the actual giving meaning to this, making sense of the data, shaping the data and patterns in a way that has useful insights, is back to us as the researcher to do. So just a few summary thoughts then on text analytics. So we did feel that Lexington, or possibly any kind of text analytics software, facilitates a highly inductive and data-driven process, and it did help us to provide an analytical fresh lens. And we did feel it had the potential to identify novel linkages and groupings that might not have occurred to us by manual coding. It might have been different if we had been completely fresh to these data sets in the first place. It did enable us to analyze at various levels of automaticity and supervision. So we picked a certain way we could get our head around. And it did help us to zoom in and out of the data. That really helped us. But it was still very much a researcher-led interpretive process. And it should definitely remain interpretive rather than aggregate. We can't see how they're really insightful outputs that merely come out of the text analytics itself. The outputs, again, were quite specific to primary studies. We found it really helpful that we knew the context of each of the studies, and that possibly helped us sift through the data and sift back through the transcripts. And we did feel that it can only inform, it was sort of a starting point to our interpretive work, particular for our gender paper. It kind of was the first part of our analysis. But kind of pragmatically speaking, it did really support and help us to standardize this kind of pool data set, and we did find it very useful. However, so I do want to end with here saying that what lies, of course, behind it are AI algorithms, and they create an incredible black box of analysis. And the biggest, however, we encountered when we did was that we realized that we explored, we had, you can have different levels of specificity within these bubbles. You can have like 60%, 30% of kind of granularity in the outputs. But the more we kind of explored and kind of reran them, the more these kind of bubbles changed. And we realized that actually, if you just explore kind of within one kind of go of running these models, you can't create non-producible findings. You can't produce reproducible findings, because AI Leximancer constantly learn from going through the data and understanding what might be co-occurring and how concepts might work with each other. So when we want to, for example, arrive at that first kind of gendered, our two gendered bubbles, sets of bubbles, we had to feed our transcripts afresh into the model, set the model afresh, and then the first output was that original output. And if we then explore, the kind of exploration would take Leximancer perhaps in other directions. So that's an interesting, it doesn't make me as a qualitative researcher as nervous as I think it does for those who are more quantitative researchers and maybe see digital tools in general, or perhaps a sort of analytical text analytics software as sort of a way to do a bit more the kind of statistical analysis with textual data as they would do in their quantitative work. But yeah, I think I would quite like to raise that as a discussion point if people are interested in discussing this. So there are whole new possibilities now with AI-supported data analysis. And of course, Leximancer is a very specific tool, but we have now ChatGPT. And I'm sure many of you have seen various of these tweets now. I haven't actually seen a worked example, but people saying that you could use ChatGPT to perform thematic analysis, and I can't quite get my head around how you would do that, or again, if they mean you arrive at specific themes. So if they mean very much the way we use Leximancer, in that we used it as a starting point, one way to get a fast idea and grasp of our data. So I think I leave it at that. I would have said over to you. I think I would say much needs to be explored, interrogated, written about, and critiqued. Yeah, I would quite like to discuss what experiences others have, or any questions you might have about using this software. Just to leave you with a picture from Cornwall in England, where I'm based. And some acknowledgements, particularly to our funder, but all the people involved in this project. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing and just to see if there are any questions.
Well, thanks so much, Dr. Guell. This is really great, really informative to see some of the background and then some of the applications in your own work. So yeah, if anybody has questions they want to throw either into the Q&A or into the chat feature, please go ahead and do that. I'm definitely interested to hear from some of the people who noticed that they were, or noted that they were advanced, but also just questions from some of the newbies too. I can throw out a newbie question while we wait for some of those. I'm wondering, I'm just so unfamiliar with all this that, I apologize for the newbiness of this question, but when you're uploading data into Leximancer or some of these other programs, is there, especially because you were getting data from 5 different data points, I mean, is there a lot of work on the front side to format those data, or are you able to just kind of upload it as is and let the
No, that is there is work, and it can be quite a lot of work. And in fact, when we first explored doing this with NVivo, and Emily and I attended a kind of advanced course of NVivo to use autocoding functions, a big part of that in the beginning is how do you prepare your data for it. I think sort of and it took a lot of work. Well, that took a lot of work, and then also really getting your head around what approvals you have. And there are studies that clearly have approval for secondary data analysis, but particularly a lot of qualitative studies haven't. If you pull older data, and just to go back to original ethics committees to get that permission. So I would say we probably needed that first year in a way to plan what we want to do, but prepare data, prepare first access, then what we would do with it. And sort of one of my lessons from it is that, and we haven't actually used Leximancer since in the project, but we're just starting another big global health project with a lot of data. And sort of one of the main notes to myself is that we want to prepare the transcripts across all these sites in a way that, and it's fairly similar how any of these programs want to have it formatted as, and it just has to be very clear who the interviewer is and who the participants are. They're kind of fairly easy rules that you could then ever so slightly through kind of find and replace relatively quickly, clean your transcripts a certain way. But if they're all slightly different, transcribed in different formats, and some have headers and some don't, or so you have a lot of work on your plate. And my own note to myself is for new projects that one thing you already save yourself, you have a harmonized way of transcribing all your data.
Makes sense. Thank you. Also wondering, I really liked your final points and some of the summary there that you had about, that we still, this is a tool that we have, it's not to replace researchers, but it is something that we can use, and that interpretation is really, still necessary. And I'm wondering, I know you mentioned this a little bit, but just in terms of where things have progressed, now with like ChatGPT and some of these other programs, like, do you kind of see that always being the case? Or, are we at a point where, or will we ever be at a point where you just throw stuff into one of these AI programs and the paper's written?
Well, I think in the health world, for those of us publishing in the health field, I think we are very used to our publications and in our method sections to think hard about how we present the analysis process. And I think we always struggle with it because some of it is a bit of an art and some of it is sort of what happens in our head. I guess the way we get around our own black box in our head of, if you're an experienced qualitative researcher, how we see patterns or how we might find it relatively easy to develop themes across data sets, is that we talk about our own positionality, reflexivity, our own interests in, the way we're theoretically framing data, and that helped us make sense of the data. I think any of these programs develop a black box that you can't transparently write about. So I think in our field, we'll struggle to, be taken seriously with this kind of analysis. But yeah, I can see, and there are lots of other fields where, you hardly have a method section in your papers and where it kind of more matters about the story. And I don't mean that in a derogative way as an anthropologist, but you tell a good, compelling story around your data, and you tell less the story about how you got to that data, and then that might be used more. But yeah, I don't know. I guess, yeah, I will always be perhaps just a tool towards and a kind of endpoint.
Yeah. No, thank you for those insights. Okay, so I think maybe we'll wrap up. I don't see any further questions. If anybody has any questions for Dr. Guell later on, please shoot us an email. You can even respond to the invite that you got, and Karen can send those over to us, and we'll get them over to Dr. Guell. So yeah, I want to thank you so much for your time. I know you're on a different time zone than us too, so appreciate you spending our lunch hour with us. And yeah, we look forward to reading more of your work, and really appreciate your time.
Thanks very much. Yeah, very happy to get questions via emails, for example, if you have to mull over all these issues. Thanks very much for inviting me.
Okay, thanks everyone. Take care.